From Geppetto Studios in New Freedom, Pennsylvania, welcome to the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast, your home for inclusive, positive geek culture, where we talk about movies, comics, music, books, and whatever else we feel like. Please welcome your host.
Well, first off, that kind of hurts.
Brad Mendenhall.
Hey kids, it is episode 278 of the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast. It is our summer movie preview episode with Scott Carelli. This is one of my favorite episodes to record every year, and it is a long one. So let's jump in. Every year, we've been doing this for probably 5 or 6 years. One of my favorite recording experiences of the year. I get to have Scott Carelli back, and we're going to talk some summer movies. Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Brad. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited. This is something I booked. I booked this so far in advance. You didn't even know why you had a free spot on your calendar.
Yeah.
I shot you a message, not that literally 20 minutes ago. It's like, hey, we still good to record? And you're like, oh, that's how come I don't have anything going on this afternoon.
Yeah. I'm just glad that I didn't fill the time with something else.
We've done this every year. We try to hit the high points of the summer. Yeah, summer should actually be in quotes because we often talk about movies that happen a little bit before. Sort of the official start of the summer movies is usually May 4th, Memorial Day weekend. We're probably going to talk a little bit of stuff before then, but the high points, we're not going to go into every art picture that comes out unless we decide we want to.
Sure.
It feels like a weird summer because there is some fatigue for certain franchises. There's franchise fatigue. Nothing yet really jumping up to take its place. Plus some of the big movies. Well, there's no Star Wars. Avatar has already been out. That was more of a Christmas thing. And DC's in flux. Marvel is in a weird phase where people aren't excited about the Marvel movies yet.
I think there's some exceptions. I think there are some exceptions to that, but they are exceptions for sure.
Yeah. Fast and Furious, which we'll talk about. That franchise, sort of people, I think, I've talked to fans who love those movies and they're losing interest.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun, sort of running on fumes. I don't know if there's anything coming up yet that's going to be the next franchise. You don't always know it until it happens. Something might grab imagination. That's sort of what we're going to talk about. But it's a weird time.
Yeah, it is. And I think the superhero fatigue is appearing. It's manifesting in a way that I think people weren't expecting. I think people were expecting it to go the way of the Western, where it was just this sort of like gradual thing. That was always the comparison everybody used, was like, oh, it's like the Westerns in the 50s, how like eventually people just got sick of Westerns and then we didn't have Westerns again until like Young Guns.
And it would always be like one movie every 3 or 4 years that was popular, but it wouldn't bring a deluge. It wouldn't bring it back.
Right. There was like an attempt to bring it back in like the 90s with the sort of 1-2 punch of
Dances with Wolves.
No, I guess that is. I don't ever think of that as a Western, but I guess yes, it is. But no, I was thinking of the Clint Eastwood movie and then Tombstone.
Unforgiven,
yeah, Unforgiven and then Tombstone. That sort of 1-2 punch. They were like, and then I guess and then the Dances with Wolves. It's like, oh, the Western is back, and then you do another one on the back of those, and it flops. So yeah, but I think with the Western, it was a very gradual thing where it was like, 50s, they were like the biggest thing ever. Everyone saw every Western, and then, just gradually people just got sick of it and it just kind of went away. But now with the superhero thing, what we're seeing is that it's manifesting in a way that is not that people are sick of it. It's that they're expectations and standards have gone so astronomically high that unless it absolutely reinvents the wheel and does something you've never seen before, then it's bad and you shouldn't see it. That is where we are now with the superhero stuff. Is it has to completely reinvent the wheel, or it's nothing and don't bother. And it is interesting seeing it manifest that way.
I rewatched not that long ago my oldest son, he's liked superhero movies and Marvel movies here or there, and it's like he's never had watched the first Iron Man, and I sat with him and we watched it, and he liked it quite a bit, but it was funny where the stakes were so comparatively low, where as opposed to Ant-Man 3, which took my family out to see, and it was an Ant-Man movie, or Ant-Man and Wasp movie, and it still had the huge big battle with two armies going up against each other. And a movie, characters that lend themselves to smaller stakes, we're still having end of the world battles, as opposed to the first Iron Man, where it comes down to a one-on-one fight that actually only lasts about 5 minutes.
Yeah, that was a huge miscalculation. Like the director has talked about, like Peyton Reed has talked about how he wanted to make the third Ant-Man movie feel like an Avengers movie. And I'm like, maybe you should have just asked Marvel to direct an Avengers movie then. And let somebody else make an Ant-Man movie. Because he didn't make an Ant-Man movie. He made an Avengers movie that only starred Ant-Man characters. And and I missed the smaller guys. Like I missed his buddies, his little criminal buddies. They were like some of the best parts of the other two Ant-Man movies. So it was, I don't know. Like without Luis, like why? Come on, Luis is like one of the best parts of those movies.
Oh, I could just watch, and I've just watched clips of Luis's bits.
Yeah.
And I don't know the ins and outs, if how much that actor, who's a superb actor, if he really wants to stay with the franchise or stay with Marvel, he could very well show up in, and that's sort of what sometimes happens to the smaller characters. He'll pop up in
other stuff. I would love to see him in the Shang-Chi sequel because it's in San Francisco and that's where he is. I think he would fit right in, like next to Aquafina.
Yeah. Oh, they would be fantastic.
I think that would be the best place for Luis to make another appearance, but we'll see what happens there. And I also think one of another miscalculation they did was the TV shows, which, have been like fine to like really great. The problem is that because you're stretching out those stories across multiple episodes, I think it's becoming more apparent to people where the weaknesses in the MCU style of storytelling is. And as a result, having it all stretched out like that, I think people watched all these TV shows when there were no movies. And then now they're going back to the movies and they're like, oh, wait a minute. I recognize this weak stuff from the shows that I didn't like as much. And now I'm seeing it in the movies for the first time because, like, I don't know, like you kind of see the magic trick at that point. It's like you have the magic trick and then the TV were the movies, and then the TV shows are like slow motion magic, like a YouTube tutorial showing you how to do the magic trick. And I think that's hurting things as well. Like as much as I like things like, WandaVision, everybody talks about how that last episode is like, oh wow, I didn't realize that there was like typical Marvel. And that's what the last episode of WandaVision sort of like awoken in everybody. And then it was sort of downhill from there, I think, of people just realizing that these movies aren't as infallibly entertaining as they once may have thought.
We're going to start with April. We're going to start a little early. There's a handful of noteworthy movies starting on April 5th. 2 movies coming out the same day. Definitely going with different audiences. Air.
Yes.
Ben Affleck and Matt Damon working together and it's directed by Ben Affleck, who he talk about where his failures make you reevaluate some of his successes. Ben Affleck, the last movie he directed was that mob movie.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that and like some of the critiques of it where Ben Affleck has to be, and is a thing that happens with above the star actors sometimes, where he had to be the most virtuous, especially the most virtuous and the most right thinking guy and everything. And it's like, oh, that's actually a thing that happened with a lot of the movies that he would direct and star in. And he was a really well respected director, and The Town and Argo were certainly entertaining movies, but you sort of you see the seams a little bit, and you wonder as a director if he's going to get his mojo back with this interesting story. So I don't know if Matt Damon and Ben Affleck on screen together really holds the pop culture appeal or the audience appeal that it did going back to Good Will Hunting and some of the other work that they had done early. What's your take on this? What's the buzz?
The buzz is really good for this movie. I think it premiered at South by Southwest and people really loved it. I think that the benefit that this has is that Ben Affleck is not playing the lead in this. He's a supporting character and Matt Damon is the lead, which I think is going to help a lot in allowing Affleck to focus on directing. It's also like a pretty low stakes movie. You know, it's not a mobster movie. It's a movie about the introduction of the Air Jordan shoe, and the sort of rise of Nike as a result. And I think there's some interest in there. I also think that we're at a peak Michael Jordan nostalgia after that documentary that ESPN did. It was ESPN, right? Not HBO. Yeah, that ESPN did that everybody loved. Yeah, and I think that I think it's going to be a modest success. I don't think it's going to be like a runaway freight train, because at the end of the day everyone knows that it's going to be on Amazon in a month. Cuz it's an Amazon movie, but I'm going to go see it. I'm going to go see both of these movies this weekend. But yeah, I mean, I think it just looks, I don't know. Sometimes I'm just in the mood for a movie like this, like just like, what you're going to get because you know what the end of the story is. And you're just sort of like, I don't know, watching people be good at their job. I like movies like that. I'm charmed by them and I'm very entertained by them, and I'm sort of comforted by them.
It's become this weird genre of these takes on real life stories of sort of household things and the interesting story behind it. Because I know there's the Tetris movies coming out on one of the streaming services.
Apple.
Yeah, good cast. Affleck, when I like him better as a director when he's not acting. I think that'll be could be interesting. It's placed at a weird time because it's something you would think would be awards bait, but it's not really a prime award time.
No, I think they're not. I don't think they're chasing an awards thing. I think they're more just trying to make like a crowd pleasing, biopic of sorts.
The same day, my kids are excited about this one, the Super Mario Brothers movie. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it looks fun. It really looks fun. It looks like they got it right. It looks like, I'm not the biggest Illumination fan, but they have been getting better. The Bad Guys was very good.
I like that a lot. I liked The Bad Guys quite a bit.
Yeah, shockingly good. I think that was Illumination. Maybe that was just DreamWorks. That's the thing too, is like I can't really tell the difference because DreamWorks puts out the Illumination movies. But in any event, I think Illumination is trying some new stuff. They've apparently just started an adult animation line, and they're developing their first film within that, based on the Universal monsters. And I'm interested to see where they go. Like, I like that they're not using their success to rest on their laurels. They're gonna experiment and do some weird stuff, because that's what Pixar did, and we got some of the best Pixar movies out of that situation. They're not doing the best right now, but that just means that there's a hole in the marketplace that Illumination could theoretically fill.
We need and it's good to have. Not that pretty recently, my parents came up and they had a day where they were taking my kids out, and they're like, "Oh, should we take them to the movies?" And I looked and was like, "Wow, there's nothing really in theaters for kids," and there's just a lot of gaps in that sort of. And I understand it; those really ramp up a little bit in the summer because kids are off. But um, I think having something like this doesn't need to be the most challenging. And as much as I love Pixar, Pixar can be really challenging for kids. So, take something fun, get a good voice cast. The animation will look great, and the place for that.
Yeah, no, I'm on board. I think my franchisography co-host and I are going to go see this because we saw the Sonic movies together. So I think we're going to go see this together as well.
I grew up in a place where they told you what to chase, told you how to run the race. Every move was on the page, but I didn't like their way. Had to fight and misbehave, had to find a way to change, had to leave to find my way. Caught up in a daydream, I beat my mind up cause everybody wanna tell you bad things. What could go wrong?
Paint's coming out with Owen Wilson.
Yeah. I was surprised that this was, I mean, he's obviously supposed to be Bob Ross, but not Bob Ross. I don't know. It's a weird concept for a movie.
Yeah, it is. Because I think everyone thought it was just a Bob Ross movie, and a lot of press was talking about it as if that it was sort of, but it wasn't that official movie. It's nice to see Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
So, and Stephen Root's in it. I'm a big Stephen Root fan. Going through, April's always weird because they start putting those movies out, but movies tend to have a little bit of give them a little bit of space. But going to April 14th, 2 more movies coming out, and these are more interesting just for the fact they have actors who I think are pretty well regarded as they're no longer at their box office drawing peak, but you have The Pope's Exorcist with Russell Crowe, and Renfield, which could be Nicolas Cage is at a weird point where he seems to be, because you and I talked before, where he takes whatever the number is, $2 million a movie, and he just does the Nicolas Cageist of Nicolas Cage performances, and sometimes it's brilliant and sometimes it's not. Pope's Exorcist, I'm not really big into Exorcist movies.
I like Exorcist movies when they're good. The problem is most of them aren't. So that's one I'll wait and see what the reviews are like for it. But if they're good, I will definitely go see it. Renfield, I'll be there for. Renfield is a weird thing because apparently it comes from an original idea by Robert Kirkman, the creator of The Walking Dead and Invincible, that he pitched this idea and then produced the movie and put the team together and got a writer from Rick and Morty to write the script and the director of Lego Batman. So I don't know. It's interesting. I am very trepidatious about it because it's a concept that could be really fun, or it could go too far into I don't know, wackiness where the movie is a little too self-aware and then you sort of lose something in that. And so what I'm hoping for is that it's, I don't know, not quite that wacky. I'm hoping for something with a little earnestness to it. But we'll see. I think that also premiered at South by Southwest and people seem to be generally positive about it, but we'll see what that looks like when it comes out.
I'm waiting to see what Nicholas Holt's final form is.
Yeah, sure. Great
looking guy, has some talent, has been part of some successful franchises. It feels like he hasn't quite grown into whatever. Not unlike Nicolas Cage at the beginning of his career. Nicolas Cage had an interesting start, and then all of a sudden with Con Air, all of a sudden he became the action hero Nicolas Cage, and like Nick Holt, I feel like he's going to reach that point where he's going to have a breakout movie. Somebody's going to figure out the right thing to do, and he's going to like hold on to a persona for 10 years that'll really grab everyone.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know, because I can't tell if he's just like a character actor or what the situation is with him. I mean, I think there's a world where he could have been like a Jimmy Stewart type, but that didn't really seem. He doesn't seem to have any interest in that, because you don't see him doing, a lot of like rom-coms or legal thrillers or anything. Like, he doesn't play like just himself very often.
Well, I'm sure it's also tough because those movies aren't quite made the way they were. I mean, if you're going to do a legal thriller, that's going to be an Amazon miniseries. If you're going to do a rom-com, it's going to be a Netflix movie that sort of turns the genre on its head a little bit.
Or like a Sundance darling, but yeah.
I got to talk about it just because it tickles me a little bit that it's coming out. It's going to be a Netflix, but Wednesday, April 19th, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Once and Always. They are definitely tickling the nostalgia centers of the brains of people my age or a little younger.
I would have thought you would have been too old for Power Rangers.
Well, first off, that kind of hurts.
Sorry.
You're not wrong. Power Rangers and Batman the Animated Series and Animaniacs, those shows. I was in like a freshman in college. There were people my age watching those shows, but like sort of an ironic, okay, group of guys watch it and they get a laugh out of it, sort of like the campy value, sort of like the people when the old Adam West Batman show came out. You had the kids that liked the fighting, and then you had the young adults watching it for the camp and the ridiculousness of it.
I was 7 when Mighty Morphin Power Rangers premiered, I think in 92, or 8 in 93, somewhere in that range. So I was kind of like the perfect age for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and I loved it when I was a kid. And in my memory of remembering Power Rangers and how it made me feel, I was like, yeah, that show was so cool, whatever. All this did was firm up that like you can never go home again. You can never recapture that feeling because Power Rangers was lame. and this was, I watched this trailer and I was just, this is rough.
And they're not trying to do anything. They're not trying to make it better.
No, they're not. And a certain, from a certain perspective, I kind of respect that. That being said, woof. I will not be watching this because I don't think I could hold a single cringe for as long as this is going to be, because that's what would be happening to me. Sorry to everyone who still really loves Power Rangers. I know there are lots of grown men and presumably women who feel that way. I am firmly a believer in keeping Power Rangers in the past.
21st of April. Evil Dead Rise. It's very interesting because a lot of fans really desperately want that Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell Evil Dead movie. It's not going to happen. It's certainly not happening this go around.
No, and they got 3 seasons of a TV show, so
really they've had enough. But it's a fan base that just always wants it back, and it's always interesting where Raimi and Bruce Campbell are always asked questions, and they never want to say, they come so close to saying it's not happening. They'll say it's not happening, but then there's always a caveat. But they have executive producer credits, and there's a little bit of a feel. And Evil Dead's an interesting franchise because there is a specific feel to it. Like a weird bit of humor and horror. The mixture can change from movie to movie. Is this going to connect? Do you think the fans are going to come out? Is this going to be the next trilogy or take it to the next generation?
I don't know about this being the next trilogy because I don't know if it even bothers to set anything like that up in this. Excuse me. But I will say that it was, again, I keep bringing up South by Southwest, but so many of these movies premiered there. The South by Southwest audience, apparently it was one of the wildest screenings in South by Southwest history, of people just absolutely losing their minds over this movie. Because it apparently, like, despite the trailers are sort of leaning into the tone of the remake, a remake that is very, very good if you don't go in with the expectations of Evil Dead 2, because it's not a movie that's like trying to be campy or funny. It's a very like sort of like, yeah, grounded. I mean, you know, there's still lots of demonic possession and gore, but it's a movie that is trying to be scary in the same way that the original Evil Dead was trying to be scary. It was failing, and they used that failure and leaned into it in the sequels and turned them into comedies, which was great for them. But then, you know, when they did the remake, they really tried to like focus up and try and attempt to do what they wanted to do with the original Evil Dead. All of the marketing for this movie seems to be leaning in that direction. But from what my understanding is that everyone who saw it is like, no, it's sort of the perfect amalgamation of the two. It is as gory and unrelenting as that Evil Dead remake. But it is also like really campy and funny in the way that Evil Dead 2 was. And somehow it finds like a perfect balance between those two things. So I'm really excited about this. I just think it's I think it's a really good idea. I think it's really cool that they're taking the franchise out of the cabin in the woods and doing something else with it. I was kind of afraid we would just be stuck in that cabin in the woods for every iteration of Evil Dead going forward. So I'm really excited about this. I think it looks really smart and scary, and I'm really, really excited by what everyone was saying coming out of South by Southwest.
I don't want to spend too much time on this one, but Guy Ritchie has a movie, The Covenant, calling out with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I believe the title of the movie is Guy Ritchie's The Covenant.
And not to knock Guy Ritchie. I've liked some of his movies. I've liked some of his movies that I wasn't expecting to like. I think he did a surprisingly good job with Jason Statham, where he sort of did an interesting revenge filler when it could have been a dumb action movie.
Right.
Guy Ritchie's, he's not Spielberg.
No. No.
But the movie looks fine. The concept, I think, it can be affecting.
The thing that I find odd about it is that it is called Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, and it is about an American soldier's relationship with a like an Arabic interpreter, or Islamic interpreter. I can't really tell. The thing that I find odd about that is that like he's British, so he doesn't know anything about either of those things, and yet he feels so determined to call this Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. I just find the whole thing very strange. This is the Jake Gyllenhaal one, right? I love Jake Gyllenhaal. I really wish he would stop making movies like this. I think he's trying to make something that hits on the level of American Sniper. I think he's done this a few times where he keeps trying to do like a military movie that he's hoping will be like a breakthrough success. And I don't know why he keeps doing that. I like my Jake Gyllenhaal weird. I like his weird little funny characters, and I wish he would do more of that. And in the case where he is going to be more sort of generic, I wish he would pick more interesting projects to do that in. Because the problem is like he picks really interesting projects to be weird little characters, and then he picks like really boring projects to be like just a regular guy. And I'm like, maybe you should like mix those up sometimes and be weird little characters in the sort of otherwise normal movies and be a normal guy in an otherwise like kind of weird project, because I just think what he's doing isn't working. to like elevate him to movie star status. And I think he needs to shift it up.
We're only a few weeks removed from when Operation Fortune came out. There was another Guy Ritchie movie.
Yeah.
That was a Guy Ritchie movie.
Sure.
It was quirky. You had Jason Statham, who in a lot of ways is his muse. It didn't do well.
No.
But I'm not sure if it was really planned on. I don't think that was really intended to be a blockbuster. I think that's one that's going to do well on Amazon streaming or wherever it lands.
When dads find it.
Yeah. Which is weird because Guy Ritchie is sort of viewed as a daring director, but he does get a lot of dad love.
Yeah, he does. I just think I also think, yeah, you're right. That's a really good point because like, yeah, that previous movie was much more of a Guy Ritchie movie. And it's ironic that this is called Guy Ritchie's The Covenant when it just looks like the farthest thing from a Guy Ritchie movie. It looks like a Clint Eastwood movie.
Around the same time, I think this one's going right to streaming. Ghosted. This is an Apple movie. Chris Evans and Anna de Armas. It feels like this is almost like a movie that's sort of out of time. Where if this would have come out in the '90s or the early 2000s, it would have been huge because they have done movies together before. I think they can have some interesting chemistry, and. It's sort of a fun concept, sort of like a reverse True Lies. She's the badass and he's sort of the damsel in distress, and I like Chris Evans sort of going back to smart ass Chris Evans because we had a somber Chris Evans for so long as Captain America, and he was great in that, but I thought that sort of took away a lot of his charm.
Yeah, I think so. So for me, I agree with everything you're saying, and I think it's largely an issue with streaming movies is that they all seem a little out of time. Like every big streaming movie that hits, like The Gray Man, is it or what was that? What was that one with The Rock and Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot?
Red Notice.
Yeah, Red Notice. All of those movies, they all feel like they're from the 90s instead of being like the next big thing. They retreat to like the safety of like literally 3 decades ago, which is bizarre. I don't know what is up with that with streaming movies. But I will say, I think the secret weapon of this particular movie is the director, Dexter Fletcher, who is a director that I really, really like a lot. Especially when he makes his own thing. He is the director of Eddie the Eagle, a movie that I really, really love. It's not like a big like reinvent the wheel kind of thing, but it is just like a really solid biopic about an unlikely champion skier and a guy that goes to the Olympics who doesn't really belong there, and his relationship with his trainer played by Hugh Jackman. It's a Taron Egerton movie. Really, really fun, charming, easygoing, like just like a real like great like Sunday night movie. Really, really good. And then he did Rocket Man, which unfortunately came out so close to the Bohemian Rhapsody thing that which Dexter Fletcher helped finish when Bryan Singer bailed on that movie. Dexter Fletcher directed like half of that movie, like just enough to not get the directed by credit on it. But did like help a lot to get that movie finished. But he went on to do Rocket Man, the Elton John biopic, which was really, really great. And I think one of the best musical biopics we've ever had, but got buried because I think after Bohemian Rhapsody was sort of the representation of everything wrong with musical biopics. I think everybody was just exhausted by the idea of another musical biopic by another British, rock star. But Rocket Man is great. I think it's a really really great movie. It's much much better than Bohemian Rhapsody. So I really like Dexter Fletcher, and then the fact that he's in the director's chair in this, and this was something that he developed, I believe. I remember hearing about this movie like during the press for Rocket Man. He was like, "Yeah, my next thing is gonna be gonna be this movie called Ghosted. I'm really excited about it, and I've been following it since then." So while the trailer didn't exactly blow me away, I'm gonna watch this as soon as it comes out, because Dexter Fletcher is directing it. I think if nothing else, it'll probably be a nice, like, comfy action watch.
Yeah, not everything has to be challenging. And there's value in having two great looking performers who have chemistry be on screen together.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I also just love this Anna de Armas arc that she's on, where she does a movie. She does like a movie with like an actor, and the actor is so charmed by her, he's like, "Hey, I'm about to do this other movie. You should be in this movie with me." It's happened to her a few times, like with her appearance in No Time to Die, after Knives Out, and now this after Knives Out, and I believe there's another example I'm not thinking of, but yeah.
She was in Gray Man.
Right. She was in Gray Man. You're right. So yeah, I don't know. I just think I think that's fun. I like that she apparently is like so great to work with, that like these guys just keep inviting her to be like in these other things with them.
The world has definitely fallen in love with her. Obviously, her career was started before this. She was so charming and likable in Knives Out, which was not a sexy role. She was just charming and likable and sweet, and then she started doing other stuff. She was just in Blonde as Marilyn Monroe, and she's done stuff, and it's like, oh, she's also beautiful and sexy and can pull off a lot of range. Where if you just see Knives Out, you would just think, oh, she's sort of a girl next door, but she can definitely do non-girl next door. So there's a sort of a neat range there, and it's sort of fun watching her explain that, and just being an ass kicker.
Yeah, though she said she's filming The Ballerina, which is like a spin-off of John Wick right now. And she has said that this will be her last action movie for a while because she's over it. She wants to just do like some normal acting stuff again, because she did like one action movie after another, like Blonde notwithstanding. It was like back to back, like No Time to Die, The Gray Man, Ghosted, and now this Ballerina movie, sort of like back to back to back to back. And so yeah, I think she's ready to take a break from being a badass.
Skipping to the end of April, I don't think this will be a big movie, but it's one that I just want to reference. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, based on the Judy Blume novel, which is just one of those important novels that everyone sort of touches upon right before their teens. And just Rachel McAdams. I love Rachel McAdams. Sort of a weird career where a lot of people were expecting her to blow up, and she's just had a nice career as opposed to being a massive star.
This is also from the director of director Kelly Freeman Craig, who is the director of The Edge of 17, a movie that came out with Haley Steinfeld in 2016. It was my favorite movie of that year. So I'm actually really looking forward to this, because I think she's an immensely talented director. And it seems, based on the trailer, it seems like it's matching the tone of Edge of 17, or I guess writing the line between matching the tone of that and matching the tone of the Judy Blume novel. I'm really excited about this. I think this looks so charming and fun and great. I think this is going to be, whether or not it's a massive hit, I think is irrelevant, because I think this is going to be a movie that's gonna sort of be like a classic kind of instantly. That's my guess. If she makes a movie that's as good as The Edge of 17, and it's Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Yeah, I think this movie just becomes sort of an instant classic, especially with women.
When you make a really solid movie based on a young adult classic, it has generational legs because people still watch Outsiders.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is like, because she chose to make this a period piece, it'll never feel dated as a result.
The same day, and this is not going to be a successful movie. Let me rephrase. It's not going to be a blockbuster movie or anything like that. But I just want to bring it up because it's about a real life personality that I find fascinating. Big George Foreman. I think George Foreman is an endlessly fascinating person. Where he was the big bully of boxing. He was the villain of boxing because he was big, he was mean, he was just a dangerous person in the ring. And then he became everybody's lovable grandpa in the second act of his career, and then became more like a pop culture character with, so many people own like a George Foreman grill. And he's weird because he has so many kids that he named after himself. And I don't know if the movie's going to do him justice, but I just like it. It's somebody that you could make 1,000 movies about him, and none would be the same, and they could all be different. And I'm curious if this will do him any sort of justice.
Yeah, I don't know about this one. Depending on reviews, like if the reviews are really, really good, I could see myself maybe going out and seeing this. But most likely I'll just wait until it hits a streaming service and catch it later on.
Finally, this one's going right to Disney Plus. Peter Pan and Wendy. Jude Law as Captain Hook.
Yeah. I feel like I'm a broken record here, but again, for me, it's the director is the thing that I find the most interesting about this one, because it's the director of The Green Knight, from David Lowery. That's a weird director to have direct a one of these like Disney animated remakes, live action remakes. So I'm interested in it just from that perspective. Do we need another Peter Pan movie? God, no. There's been so many. We don't need this.
And they're not successful in general.
No, which is why this is going directly to Disney Plus, I'm sure. But I think the fact that they're not looking for this to be a box office smash leads me to believe that there's a chance that David Lowery was allowed to make it a little weird. That excites me to a certain extent. I think I could see this being weird on the level of like Where the Wild Things Are was weird. A movie that I didn't love, but I kind of respect in a weird way, for just like how weird it was allowed to be. But yeah, I don't know. I'm interested in this just from the David Lowery of it all. And I will say this, while I am sick of all the Peter Pan adaptations, guess how many of them I've watched? 0. So yes, I'm tired of them, but also I haven't watched any of them. So watching this isn't going to be like a chore for me, like it might be for people who watched all those other ones that have come out in the past like 20 years. I think I swear we've had like 4 Peter Pan movies of the past 4 years. It's crazy.
Well, they keep trying to reinvent the wheel, and also there's stuff that's problematic or hasn't aged well that they try to work their way around. And they also try to do like origin stories, because they had the one with Hugh Jackman.
Right.
And he was like the bad guy before Hook, and you get to see how Hook became Hook. It's like nobody cares how Hook became Hook. I appreciate you trying, but nobody cares about Hook becoming Hook before he was Hook. Which, there are some, and we've talked about this. There's some franchises that just keep popping up, and nobody cares, and they forget about it, and it pops up again, and before you know it, congratulations, there's Johnny Depp as Tonto and another Lone Ranger, even though there hasn't been a successful Lone Ranger in 60 years, but gosh dang it, we'll try again. And Peter Pan has that, where they keep thinking they're going to get the mixture right this time. And, maybe they will, but it does get a laugh out of me. It's like, all right, here we go again.
I think that David Lowery being like sort of a younger sort of Sundance style filmmaker does give me more hope that he will find interesting ways to work around that stuff. So in a way that isn't avoiding it, in a way that is like sort of I reinventing it is what I'm hopeful for. So yeah, I don't know. I love the Green Knight. I thought the Green Knight was fantastic, and if he can do something in that vein here, and also he directed the one of the first live action remakes, Pete's Dragon.
Yeah, which I liked.
Yeah, which people really like are either like kind of indifferent to or are like, actually that was one of the best ones. And yeah, so I'm pretty hopeful about this. I really am. I don't think he chose to remake Peter Pan without a plan, is my guess.
So we go to May 5th, and this is the real, when it gets serious. Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yeah.
All indications is this is going to be the last time we see, if not all, a lot of these characters.
Yeah.
And James Gunn is, this is his farewell to Marvel for the foreseeable future. He's already sort of checked out. I mean, this movie is made, and he's now running DC, or co-running DC. I'm trying to figure it out when I watch it. Where is it the characters realizing in a lot of the footage we've seen, but also a lot of the interviews, I can't tell if the characters feel like they're at the end of the line or if the actors just feel like they're just done with it. Whenever I hear Dave Bautista interview, he just sounds like he couldn't care any less about this, and he's so ready to move on from the character. He seems relieved that these movies are over.
Yeah, I mean, I think he probably has, because I don't think Dave Bautista is like mad about these movies. I think if anything, I think that the reason why he's exhausted is because it took so long to get the third one out and done, because there was that whole fissure that happened.
Because this was supposed to sort of kick off the next iteration of Marvel.
Right. This was supposed to be like the first summer Marvel movie post Endgame. That obviously didn't happen, and James Gunn went and made the Suicide Squad, and then returned to finish this up. And he apparently barely touched the script between the one that he turned in, back in 2018, and the one that's getting released this year. So from Bautista's perspective, I'm sure he's just like, I haven't played this character since, well, I guess he was in Thor: Love and Thunder. I don't know how that scheduling worked, but I'm sure he was like, I thought I was like wrapping up, because I mean, he's old. He's an old guy, like he's ready to get out of like wearing makeup and walking around shirtless all the time.
The ads are so funny because he's wearing a shirt the entire time in the ad.
Yeah. He's probably done. He was like, okay, I'm not going to be shirtless this time. That was probably part of it, of like, just to cut back on the makeup chair time, if nothing else.
Because that was a character trait. He couldn't wear shirts.
Oh, right. That's true. But I'm not mad at Bautista for being frustrated, especially when the whole thing was like, a ploy by people who did not have the best of intentions, and Marvel was forced to listen to it because of board people on the Disney board and all of that. It was a whole rigmarole, and I think that Bautista is well aware of that and was exhausted by that. But he showed up. I'm sure that he's going to give an incredible performance, because Bautista's great. But yeah, I think in general, I think this is going to be the last time we see any of these guys. I don't think. I think the only one that I could see maybe returning later on might be Groot. I think everybody else is donezo after this. Rather either 6 feet underground donezo, the characters, or just, having their happy ending somewhere in the galaxy, and then we'll never see them or hear from them again. That's my guess.
Skip ahead a little further, all the way to the 19th of May. Fast 10. This is the penultimate in this series, as far as we know. They say it's going to end with 11. The Fast 9, I know it made a lot of money. There's no way you could say that it was a failure financially, but I remember on this show, frequent contributor Mike Watson, who was just a big believer in the Fast and Furious movies. He loved these so much. And he's like, as long as they talk about family, I'm in. And then after watching Fast 9, he's like, well, I guess I'm out. And there were a lot of people disappointed. And there's just fatigue with this franchise. And listen, every Transformers movies made a ton of money and everyone hated it. And then the next movie would come out and everyone would go and see it and would make a ton of money. So it's going to make money. And it might just be starting to transfer in that movie where everyone says they don't like it and everybody sees it 5 times.
Yeah. I guess the fatigue with 9. I thought Fate of the Furious was way worse than F9. I thought F9 was like a mild return to form after Fate of the Furious, which I thought was like very, very sort of generic. But yeah, there's nothing about this trailer that gets me excited. That being said, am I going to go see it? Yeah, like I'm definitely going to go see it, but my expectations are not. I'm not really understanding what people's expectations of this franchise are, because when they say like, oh, I think they've lost it, I'm over it. I'm like, but what did they have that they don't have now? It's just as dumb as it ever was. I don't really know. I just think that maybe people are tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. But that's always been what this franchise is. I don't know. They're spies now. I don't know. It's weird. It's like I don't know. I'm gonna go see this.
I literally had to explain to my child the first one. They were drag racers who were stealing TVs and VCR combos.
Yes, correct.
It's nonsense.
Yeah. I just don't. I have no issue. Like even, I think at its worst, this franchise is boring. I still think the worst movie in the franchise is Fast and Furious, the fourth one. I just think that movie is actively boring, but there's enough like wild stuff in these. I think maybe they're a little too long. That's definitely true. I think they need to like figure out how to shorten these things because they get so into the plots of these movies. And I'm like, guys, no one cares about the plots of these movies. You don't need to spend 20 minutes explaining to me the MacGuffin of this particular movie. They're all the same. It's irrelevant. But it is what it is. And I'm going to go see this. And that being said, the next one, which is supposedly the last one, I've heard rumors about what caused the fissure with Justin Lin, like why Justin Lin left. And it'll be interesting if those rumors are true. It'll be interesting to see people's reaction to that, because I have a feeling that the entire audience is going to turn on Vin Diesel and the franchise if what I've heard is true.
These movies do become very overstuffed. On one hand, I'm Jason Momoa is a bad guy. I think that's a good choice for a bad guy. He's sort of one of the, physically, presence-wise, he's a good fit to come up against him, and I think they're tying it into Fast 5. Brie Larson. I like Brie Larson getting work.
I assume everyone who's like blonde that shows up in these movies, I assume she's playing like Brian's sister or something. the Paul Walker character, but I don't know, maybe not. I thought maybe that was going to be the case with Charlize Theron too, but that ended up not being the case. At least not yet. There's always a retcon.
Well, because there's the rumors that Gal Gadot, she apparently filmed stuff for that, and it's like, and everyone's like, listen, they've brought people back from the dead less ridiculously.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it. I'm not excited about it. But I will go and watch it on like a Saturday afternoon and probably have a fun enough time.
Alan Ritchson is in this, is the new Jack Reacher.
Yeah, he's a tree trunk of a man.
It's such a great cast, and he did a great job as Jack Reacher. And I think he has a relatively small role. It's like, you know what? I would sort of like to see him as a young, tough swing with Vin Diesel. But
that's really interesting. We've got 2 Aquamans in the new Fast movie.
I wonder if they discuss that.
I don't know. I'm sure if they share any scenes, I'm sure he walked up and was like, I was Aquaman before you. I'm sure.
Wonderful bit of trivia with Alan Ritchson. I love this. Years ago, he auditioned and made it to the Hollywood round of American Idol.
Wow.
He wasn't as much of a tree trunk. He was a tall guy with broad shoulders, but he wasn't quite, he hadn't beefed up. Great looking guy. Paula Abdul was like the Tex Avery wolf howling because of how great looking it was. And they all just like, oh, let's just let him sing to Paula. And it was really funny. And he came, you forget how so many people from movies, it's not in, people sort of view him as an overnight success, but no, he was Aquaman, and they kept trying to keep him in that early CW Smallville era programming. Like they knew they had something with him, and all credit given, seems to have sort of broke through.
But just recently with Jack Reacher, because he was just Hawk in Titans, which is basically like CW adjacent.
Not a bad actor, and when you're that massive, and it's sort of what I've always said about The Rock and Vin Diesel is like, regardless, good enough actors have presence, and you can't film around there's something really honest and awesome about the tree trunk actors, because I watched plenty of action movies with Mel Gibson, but you realize, the Lethal Weapon movies were fun, but you have to do a lot of filming around them to make them look intimidating, because in real life, Mel Gibson, Tom Cruise, a lot of the action stars were actually not the most physically imposing guys. And you just put the camera on him, and it's like, yeah, he's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Around the same time, I just want to call this out. A new version of White Men Can't Jump. And it's one of these, oh yeah, there's a remake that everyone's going to forget about 2 weeks after it comes out. Like they did with Point Break a handful of years ago.
Sometimes I think I have absolutely no thoughts or feelings on this whatsoever, other than the fact that I think that sometimes these remakes, legitimately, like what you're talking about, the sort of remakes that don't exist after they're released, like the second they're dropped, everyone forgets that they ever happened. I legitimately think these get made because they're easy to be greenlit by the studio, and it makes a lot of people, it gives a lot of people jobs. Like it just gives them work. Like I literally think that's the only reason any of these get made, is that a bunch of people are like, we need work. Let's remake a movie that people have heard of, get it greenlit by the studio, make it, and then worry about our next project, 2 years from now.
It probably will get released on DVD, like as a 2-pack. Like the original version and the remake.
If that is it even being released in theaters, or is it a streaming movie?
It is Hulu. It's a Hulu.
Yeah, so there you go. So we will never hear the likes of this movie ever again. It will not exist.
May 26th. Another case of Robert De Niro playing sort of a cranky or addled father. About My Father. Leslie Bibb, who I love. I was like, I'm glad De Niro's getting work.
This is the first I'm hearing about this. I don't know anything about this.
looks like wacky dad stuff. Not that long ago, I saw like clips from Dirty Grandpa, and like we all just like that Robert De Niro is old now, and he's so hit or miss with comedy, and a lot more misses than hits. But I'm sure Leslie Bibb was really excited to get a chance to work with De Niro.
You got me rich because I'm clean and I'm wealthy. Sitting in the kitchen with your friend in the deli.
That same weekend, you know what? I'm going to save the big one for last. But also The Machine, based on the Burt Kreischer comedy routine.
Yeah. I don't know anything about that comedy routine. I won't be seeing this because I just don't. I don't know. I got nothing. So yeah, I'm glad it's working out for him. I guess the thing that I've heard is that the movie seems to be a sequel to his bit instead of an adaptation of his bit. Which I respect the creativity of that, I guess.
People aren't familiar, including Scott. He just tells his bit, and he does a comedy set, which he does shirtless, and he's not a guy who you would think to do anything shirtless. Very much a dad bod guy. He talked about when he was in, I think it was high school or college, being on a trip in Russia, and there were Russian gangsters on the train, and he like went up to them, and the only words he knew to say in Russia was, I don't know what the translation is, but it was like, "I am the machine," and they say, "Oh, this is a cool young dumb kid." He calls himself the machine, and they drank heavily with him, and he got into all sorts of hijinks. And it's one of these things. It's the YouTube clip has been shared, and I don't know if Kreischer's a good comedian or not. He definitely has a lot of energy and sort of a weird, crazy dad charisma. And the movie is him now as a married guy playing himself, with Mark Hamill playing his dad, and he gets pulled into a caper by like the daughter of one of the Russian people from that. So it ends up turning into like this comedy bit turns into a weird comedy action adventure. It's R-rated, and it's a hard R-rated. And I was like, all right, yeah, neat. Burt Kreischer gets to be an action star in his own wacky way. So that's sort of fun. The big movie that weekend will be Little Mermaid. I'm looking forward to Melissa McCarthy as Ursula.
I was surprised by how good she looked in the role, looked and sounded in the role based on that latest trailer. Very impressed, I guess. I wasn't expecting to be won over by that casting. But I think Haley Bailey is like the star of the show here. I mean, she just feels like Ariel personified. It's kind of insane. That being said, they still are doing that stupid live action Disney thing where the talking animals have to look like real animals, and it's just very off-putting. Sebastian is like something from my nightmares. I mean, it is just awful. And honestly, the seagull that Aquafina is voicing doesn't look much better. So I don't love that. I don't love that part. And I do think that it is suffering from, the same green screen problem we've seen like a million times at this point. Of like, it's just a single like real person surrounded by green screen. I don't know. I'm going to go see it to support, I guess what they did with this, but I don't like Rob Marshall as a director. I don't think he's a particularly good director. And, so I don't know that he was the right choice for this. It looks very safe in the way the Beauty and the Beast was a very safe live action remake.
My kids will be thrilled to see, especially my daughter. I have a daughter who's 11, and this is right in her wheelhouse. And, it'll be fun. And then we're going to probably go home, and the next day we'll watch the original movie. And then there'll be a debate on, every time it's like, I want to watch Little Mermaid. Which one? It's like, come on, Dad. We really want to watch the animated one. For me, it's interesting because I have when I saw this, I've been giving a lot of thought to Melissa McCarthy because it's been a while since she has had a home run. And I realize, and I've come to the theory, and I might be way off. I think she's become a package deal with her husband, Ben Falcone, who I think is a bad director, and I think isn't a great creative. And I don't think they bring the best out of each other.
Well, I don't think he would have a career without her. Full stop. Like I think he is so bad at what he does at being a director and a writer that I literally do not think his career would exist unless he were married to her and she had starred in Bridesmaids. All of those things needed to happen in order for his career to happen. And that's we don't talk about him in terms of nepotism, but he is like one of the finest examples that we have, I think, of the nepotism in Hollywood, because he has directed like 6 features or something like that. They're all garbage, and he continues to get movies made just because she's his wife and agrees to star in them.
It's now to the point where if ever I see her in anything, all of a sudden there he is. He cameoed with her in Thor: Love and Thunder. She did that Super Bowl ad for like a travel service, and he played her gardener. And I was like, oh, I'm tired of seeing him. And I'm sure he's a delightful person. And I think he has value as an actor. He keeps getting shoehorned into it, either by being the creative in her work. And I think every time he doesn't know how to write for Melissa McCarthy.
No. The only thing that he does with her is it's funny when Fat Lady Fall Down. That's it. That's what he does. And it's a bummer. It's a bummer because Melissa McCarthy is a much better actress than he seems to be aware.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to like her being in a non-Ben Falcone production.
Very, very much so. Yes.
Following week, starting with June, I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be brilliant. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Oscar Isaac as Spider-Man 2099, and I love that character. I collected the first issues of that, the Marvel 29, which was a very disappointing project in full, but that series was awesome. Having him sort of being presented as the antagonist from what we've seen, not necessarily a bad guy, but definitely the antagonist. And I think the first movie was really good, and I think this second one could even be better, because I think it could be something where, especially with the creative behind that, I think they might have even have learned from it, and everything that worked, I think it's going to work even better. And I'm really excited about this.
Yeah. I mean, this is, I mean, I have to really think hard about this, but I don't think that there's another movie. It's like this and something that's opening in July that are like the 2 movies that I'm the most excited for this year. And yeah, I am so beyond pumped to see this movie.
The following week, Strays?
Yeah.
R-rated talking dog movie with, Will Ferrell.
It looks funny. I don't know. It looks fine. It doesn't look like it's anything like, over the moon special, but I believe it's a Lord and Miller produced film, if I remember correctly. So
yeah, they're going to have their fingerprints on this.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be, solid if nothing else, but I think it looks funny. I don't know. It looks good. Solid.
The feel reminds me a little bit of the animated movie, R-rated animated movie with where they were all grocery food.
Oh, sure. Sausage Party.
Right. Yeah, which there's a place for those movies. There's a couple of movies, R-rated films, that are leaning into the R-ratedness of it that's coming this summer that I'm sort of all on board for, and this is one of them. It's probably something to wait for streaming.
Unless I hear that this is like just over the moon hysterical. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, there's something to be said about seeing like a really, really funny movie in like a crowded theater, but like a middle of the road comedy, not so much.
Same weekend, Transformers: Rise of the Beast. The Transformers movies got terrible, but I think people in general liked Bumblebee, although it didn't. Bumblebee was a good movie that was didn't make amazing box office, partially because people were tired. There was fatigue of that, and the last movies had been so bad. I don't know if Rise of the Beast is. I saw the preview. It feels like they're really trying to shoehorn in characters that they don't need. What's the buzz on this?
I don't know. It's the director of Creed 2, a movie that I like a lot. And so I'm excited about it from that perspective. It has a lot of screenwriters on this thing. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screenwriters, which isn't always a good sign. But I have heard that they really took their time with this one in development. And this is also the first movie to come out of Hasbro putting that writer's room together. Do you remember that? That was like announced.
Yeah, they had Michael Chabon
And Brian K. Vaughan and yeah. This is coming. This is the first production coming out of that writer's room. So I am interested because I did really love Bumblebee, and I think that the opening 10 minutes of Bumblebee is the best Transformers movie we've ever had. And largely speaking, I think Bumblebee in general is probably the best Transformers movie we've ever had. I know people really like that first one, but I don't know. They're wrong. It's bad. But
it's nonsense.
Yeah.
It was headache inducing.
Yeah.
People were just excited because there was a couple great hero shots of Optimus Prime.
Yeah. Try rewatching that first Transformers movie, guys. It's bad. But yeah, all of the Michael Bay ones were bad. Bumblebee was the first like actual good Transformers movie, but those opening 10 minutes of that movie are just like bananas, like crack for a Transformers fan. That sort of battle on Cybertron, like, oh my gosh, so cool. But so I'm hoping that this captures a little more of that energy. But it certainly appears to be a lot of robots running in the desert at each other and away from each other. And that doesn't seem like it's that much different than what we've gotten in the past. So I don't know. Could go either way.
I loved Transformers so much growing up. I went for my birthday. My parents took me to see the original animated Transformers movies in theaters.
Sure.
Which you mentioned before, not going back. The animation was so terrible, and you could tell they just ran out of steam partway through. But I wanted to like it. I remember watching the first Michael Bay movie. And again, a couple of cool hero shots, a nice scene here or there. You couldn't tell the difference between any characters. You didn't know who was fighting who. Just a garbled mess of a movie. It did not get better as it went on.
No.
Following week, Elemental, new Pixar movie. The animation looks amazing. The music, everything else. They haven't shown too much of the plot of this, which is okay. But Pixar makes really good movies.
Yeah, and this looks like a return to form for them a little bit. They've done some like weird choices lately, some of which have worked really well. Like the Red Panda movie, which I really, really loved. And then things that didn't work so well, like Lightyear. But this looks like a return to form for them in terms of like, let's just make a movie where what if blank had feelings? And this time it's Elements. What if Elements had feelings?
I liked Lightyear. They shouldn't have called it Lightyear, and probably they should have made a live action movie.
Well, yeah. I mean, that never would have gotten greenlit as a live action movie. It would have been too expensive. But it's fine, right? But it obviously appeared to be a miscalculation on their part. I just don't think it's what people go to see Pixar movies for.
It was just too many plots on top of each other.
Yeah.
It's a movie it's a movie that the kid from the first Toy Story movie watched, and then he decided to get the toy. And it's like,
that also doesn't make any sense. Like, just objectively, that doesn't make any sense. I think the way that they should have advertised it is had adult Andy going to see the movie as if like he was an Iron Man comic book fan who grew up watching, reading Iron Man comics and then went and saw Iron Man when it came out in theaters. That's how they should have sort of presented it. The way they presented it was so confusing.
speaking of things that can end up being confusing.
Well, before we okay. Well, I was going to say, before we get to that, I want to shout out Asteroid City, which is the new Wes Anderson movie. Which the last time he released a movie during the summer, it was like an unlikely, like kind of mid blockbuster with Moonrise Kingdom. That was the last time that he released a movie in the summer. And this, again, like Moonrise Kingdom, is about that was about Boy Scout, and this is about a astronomy club of kids and like the people teaching that astronomy club. We don't really know anything about it other than that, but I will say that both Tom Hanks and Steve Carell are in this. First time they've ever been in a Wes Anderson movie. I am really excited to see this.
Tom Hanks, Bill Murray, Margot Robbie, Jason Schwartzman's Adrian Brody, who are sort of his players. Scarlett Johansson, Bryan Cranston. It's got a great cast, and I'm sure they had a lot of fun. Tom Hanks is in a sort of interesting part of his career where he's just doing some crazy crap.
Yeah, that's true.
And he seems to be down for stuff, and maybe it doesn't all work.
No, I'm really, really looking forward to Asteroid City. I think it's going to be a good one.
The Flash.
Yeah.
This movie, it's going to be a mess. That doesn't mean it's going to be a bad mess, but it's definitely going to be a mess. And there's Flash, and then there's the second Aquaman, and that's pretty much going to wrap up the DC universe as we know it.
We're the Aquaman of it is still a question mark, I think, because the test screenings for that movie have been absolutely through the floor abysmal. So I don't know if they're going to spend the money to do reshoots for that, or if they're just going to eat it on their taxes, like they did with Batgirl. It would certainly uncomplicate some things, some continuity things if they did that. But we'll see how that goes. But with the Flash, the thing that's always been fascinating about this movie is, like, despite all the drama surrounding it and everything with this movie revolving around like sort of the reboot of the DC universe and James Gunn taking over and talking about, his Superman movie being sort of the launching pad of the new DC universe. It is interesting that despite all of that drama, everyone who has seen this movie says it's one of the best superhero movies ever made. Including Tom Cruise of all people, who apparently watched a cut of this and just called Andy Muschietti out of the blue to be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you made such a great movie. This is exactly the kind of movie we need in theaters right now." And sort of comparing it to his own Top Gun Maverick movie. And I think it says a lot that Christina Hodson, the screenwriter of this movie, also wrote Batgirl, and despite that movie getting canned because it was, supposedly like quote unquote like too bad to release, she is not only like remaining with like this movie with the Flash, and it's getting like really good buzz, but also she is staying on with the James Gunn iteration of everything. Like she is part of his like writer's room for the new DC universe. So I think that says a lot about her and about, the direction that they're taking everything. And my understanding is that this is sort of like, yes, Ezra Miller's in it, and we have to deal with them being in this and all everything surrounding that. But my understanding is this ends with, Ezra Miller is not the Flash anymore. Regardless of how successful this ends up being, James Gunn has said on multiple occasions that this movie essentially reboots the DC universe. So I think we already know where this is leading, and and the fact that it's like kind of tying back to Zod and Man of Steel, which was like the first DCEU movie. I think there's a world where something changes in the plot of Man of Steel that results in the universe being rebooted, and I think that there's a clean way to deal with all of that. I don't think this is going to be that much of a mess. I think if there is a mess, it's going to be the Ezra Miller of it all, and that's about it.
I love superhero movies. I do not like speedsters.
The Flash is my favorite superhero.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I tell you what, speedsters work great in comics.
Uh-huh.
They work real well in comics because the way the page works, you can sort of play around with it. But when you bring that to TV or movies, the writers have to spend it. You have to work so hard to write these characters, to give them vulnerability and make them the underdog somehow, because
I very much disagree. I think that people just don't have the best imagination. I mean, that's definitely the case on the Flash TV show, which very much shit the bed in terms of that. The only thing they could come up with for the Flash to like fight is another speedster. And so then you just have two people running at super speed around each other, which basically equates to just two people running at regular speed because they're the same. So
right.
So now you're just watching two people running, and it's like, okay. So yeah, like I think that you can mess it up really easily, but I think that I don't even think we've begun to touch the potential of what you can do with speedster stories, because for some reason the only things that Hollywood wants to adapt are the stories where he's fighting other speedsters, which I find extremely annoying, because I think the Flash has one of the best rogues galleries in comics, and the only one they ever want to mess with is Reverse Flash, and I don't really understand that.
How are we feeling about Michael Keaton back as Batman?
That's exciting. I'm excited to see it. I think he looks like he's having fun.
He's having a great time. Michael Keaton's at it, sort of a neat sort of, and he's never gone away, but he's having a really awesome resurgence. He's great, and it's fun to see him back as a character that there was still so much gas left in the tank, and I understand why he left the series when he did, but yeah, just seeing him back in the costume, he looks great. He's in his 70s. But they've learned how to sort of, they're filming around it. And I was talking with someone about, you don't realize when you watch the first two Batman movies, he could barely move.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets to move. And, the CGI and stunts and costume, everything better. It's like, he's going to have fun.
I think if I have a major complaint, I mean, like, one, I've never liked Ezra Miller as the Flash. Even before they went through everything they went through, I just thought they were extremely miscast in the role. It's actually like one of the only like miscastings I think that Zack Snyder, for everything Zack Snyder that you may or may not believe or feel or think, I think that he was very good at casting. I think he got like really talented actors in these roles and thought outside the box. Just look at like Jason Momoa with Aquaman. But I think Ezra Miller was a total miscast, and I've never liked that. And I think if this movie is what it says that it is, or what it seems to be, which is like a total reboot of the DC universe, and we've got two Batmans in this, and we've got Zod in this, and all of this stuff. I just think, and Supergirl, I just think maybe this should not have been called The Flash. I think that I wish they would have saved that title for a movie that was actually about The Flash and not about the DC universe at large. This should have been called Flashpoint. It used to be called Flashpoint. And then they were like, we're not doing the Flashpoint story anymore. It's just called The Flash. And then this trailer comes out and you're like, I mean, it seems like you guys are doing Flashpoint. I don't know why you changed the title.
reminds me, and we had the discussion years ago about how Captain America Civil War should have been Avengers Civil War.
Yes. 100%. 100%. Or just Marvel Civil War, like, yeah, it was not a Captain America movie. And that's exactly the case here. It's like, why is this movie called The Flash? Just because The Flash happens to be the protagonist, seemingly, of this movie. Like, The Flash is surrounded by the entire DC universe, and I don't know, seems to just be reacting to things rather than like actively doing anything. And I don't know. I just think this should not have been called The Flash.
He's supposed to be our eyes in the story.
Right. No, and I mean, if he's spending the whole movie in Gotham City, in iterations of Gotham City and Metropolis, you're telling me he's not even going to be in Central City or Keystone City, and you're like, you're going to call this movie The Flash? Like, come on. I don't know. Feels like a waste to me.
Another movie coming out is going to Netflix at that time. Extraction 2?
Oh, yeah. I never saw this. I never saw the first one. Not typically my kind of movie.
I liked the first one quite a bit. It was a chance for Chris Hemsworth, who I like. And I like Chris Hemsworth funny. But it was a chance for him not to be funny. And he was able to show some action hero grit and a little bit of darkness to his character. And he's back. I enjoyed it. They had a couple of some pretty cool one-ers. And I know they're working very hard to make more interesting one-ers, action one-ers in this. Also, just the interesting part where Chris Hemsworth is at a very interesting part of his career. He's sort of talked about stepping back. Some medical issues that were brought up during the sort of reality show he did on Disney Plus, and concerns about future health issues. And we might not have that many chances to see him do stuff shortly. And recently I saw a weird. I'm reaching here, but recently I saw Warren Beatty do a really weird interview where he was interviewed both as Warren Beatty and Dick Tracy, and you realize it's like, oh wow, it's been a long time since we've seen Warren Beatty, and there are some really great actors and actresses out there that don't really do stuff anymore, except for maybe once every 5 years they show up in something small or as an interview or whatever. And Chris Hemsworth could get to that point where he's being more selective. So having a chance to see him and doing something and a sequel to something I liked, then this is, I don't want to say old school, but it's definitely sort of a gritty action, sort of John Wick, but even a little more grounded than John Wick. John Wick, the action's grounded, but everything else around it, it's sort of surreal.
Yeah, the action isn't that grounded either, but yeah. I love John Wick. I love John Wick. That's not an exaggeration. Like a negative.
It's not a dig.
No, not a dig at all. I love John Wick. But it is insane that he barely ever gets hurt in those movies.
Cars run him over, but it's definitely not wire fighting.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. No, that's cool. I do think that it goes, like, I'm glad that people like these movies or like the first one anyway. But I do think that it reiterates what I said before about the streaming services making their big blockbusters feel like they belong from the 90s. Cause I think that first Extraction movie, I was like, yeah, this looks like a movie from the 90s to me. But oh well.
Following that, an ad. I saw the trailer for this. I saw the Red Band trailer. I think I like this movie. I think I'm going to like this movie, but I'm not sure if I should. No Hard Feelings with Jennifer Lawrence. First off, it just feels weird that Jennifer Lawrence is in it, because Jennifer Lawrence is an interesting character where in interviews and on talk shows, she's sort of funny and wacky and a sort of a comedic person, but she plays serious movies. And this is sort of an 80s comedy. And it already feels like it hasn't aged well, and it hasn't even come out yet.
I disagree. I think it's about something very specific. That younger people, especially like younger millennials and to a certain extent, Gen Z, though I don't think they're old enough to be dealing with it completely. But I do think that there is because this movie is about Jennifer Lawrence being hired by this kid's parents to like seduce him and be his girlfriend so that she can like they'll give her a car because her car gets towed. Because she's kind of a train wreck of a person, a real train wreck of a person, unlike the movie Trainwreck, where the person was really successful and has like
She's
a
a
big
loser.
apartment in New York. Yeah, this woman is an actual train wreck and a loser and has to like bike to work and this whole thing. So she agrees to do this, and you meet this kid who isn't a kid. He's like 19. He is an adult, and what I think is interesting about this movie is that it seems to be talking about the sort of infantilization that the younger people of my generation and Gen Z have done to themselves, where they just are like not only are they not wanting to grow up, but they're also averse to anyone calling them out on it or wanting to even like I don't know, they get really angry about anyone even suggesting that they should grow up. It's very strange, and it is this sort of self infantilization that they're doing, and this seems to be dealing with that a little bit in a way that I actually think is poignant to stuff that's going on right now. So I think there's certainly like, sex comedy stuff in here that I could see people thinking isn't going to age well, but at the same time, I don't know, that line where he's like, "You're trying to kidnap me," and she's like, "You're 19 years old, grow up." I'm like, yeah, like I think that there's going to be something interesting said here, and I love that Jennifer Lawrence is doing a comedy. Like I think that these are the kinds of movies that she should have been doing all along. I think that she got trapped in Oscarville for a while, for like reasons that seemed to be out of her control for the most part, where she was like 23 and playing like a 40-year-old woman in a biopic. Hated that for her. This seems like where she should have been all along. I wouldn't be surprised if we looked into it if she got new representation, and that's why this sort of shift is happening. Because yeah, like for a while, you're right, all she did was Oscar stuff, and none of it stuck. It was like, she had that breakthrough in that movie when she was a kid, where she did the Oscar stuff that she shot in Kentucky, and then she did the dancing movie, and then ever since then it's just been one David O. Russell movie after another, and then the Hunger Games, and that was it. And the Hunger Games, those movies are fine, but like they didn't really give her anything to do. She was easily the most boring character in that franchise, unfortunately.
No, she's stoic and virtuous, and
Right.
that's fine. And then she did the X-Men movies, where it definitely felt like she signed up for the first X-Men movie because she wasn't quite yet Jennifer Lawrence, and then it's like, I guess I gotta keep doing these movies.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm excited for her. I think that this could be like the start of a second page for her. And yeah, hopefully the movie's good and is worth the bet here. But the trailer I think looked really funny.
I got to laugh, and I watched it a couple times, and she has a wonderful energy, and it's what people gravitated to because everyone, and then there was overexposure, but everyone had a crush on her, and not necessarily from the movies, but because she was charming and goofy and fun, and she felt a little bit, despite the fact that she's gorgeous and talented and rich and all the reasons why she's not like everyone else, but she did feel like when Jack Nicholson's hitting on her, she's not playing it cool. She's losing her mind. It's like, okay, that's how we would all act if somebody that we saw growing up
Yeah.
all of a sudden was paying attention to us.
Sure.
The following week, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen with this?
I think it's going to be great. I love James Mangold. I don't think he signs on to something and half-asses it. Even because like I think this is going to have it's gonna be Logan-esque, not in that it'll be, you know, dark and depressing like that movie was, but I think it'll be this sort of like love letter to this character. And I'm really looking forward to this. It seems to be a return to form. And I think I get it. Harrison Ford's old, but you know what? He's still charming as hell. I don't know if you're watching Shrinking, but he is so good on that show. And I love Harrison Ford, and so I'm really looking forward to this. I love James Mangold. I love Harrison Ford. I think there's a world where this could be sort of a breakout hit this summer. But if it's not, I at least hope it's good. You know, that's all I want. It's just a good send off for this character, because, you know, if Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was the last time we saw him, that would have been a bummer. So yeah, I'm just hoping. Look, odds are good. So far, every other Indiana Jones movie has been good. Hopefully, this is good. And it's also every other Indiana Jones movie, and also the Indiana Jones movies with Nazis are always the good ones. So, yeah, fingers crossed. I really like James Mangold. Did you see Ford versus Ferrari?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that movie. That was and I have zero interest in the subject matter of that movie, but that movie was great.
He's a really good director, and he's one of those working man directors who will take on he can take on franchises or take on projects that are either in decline. Like when he did the second and third Wolverine movie, you know, that was after Wolverine Origins. The Wolverine worked until it didn't.
Well, I think even if you've seen the director's cut of Wolverine, it is paced a lot better, and so everything just feels closer to Logan. I think I might even prefer the director's cut of the Wolverine to Logan, in many ways. But yeah, he's just really good. Copland, that's the other thing too. He is very good at taking sort of elder statesman actors and doing something interesting with those characters, you know, like Copland's a phenomenal movie. And again, like the Wolverine and Logan. So like, I think if anyone was going to do something really cool with this idea, I think it was going to be him, not Steven Spielberg. As much as I think people are a little trepidatious about Steven Spielberg not directing this, I'm not. I think James Mangold is great, and it looks like a Steven Spielberg movie. You know, if you had told me if you'd shown me that trailer and told me that Steven Spielberg directed this, I would have believed you.
I love Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yeah.
She's gonna be great, and I love that
John Rhys Davies.
He's great, and
Mads Mikkelsen was literally put on this planet to play an Indiana Jones villain. So,
oh yeah, it's one of those things. Like, how come this hasn't happened before?
Oh, we haven't had an Indiana Jones movie.
They should have just one. They just should have made one with him, and like, all right, later we'll film everyone else. Let's get him in let's film him as bad guy in like 5 movies.
I know, man.
I see. After that, it starts. Insidious: Fear of the Dark is coming out.
Patrick Wilson's debut as a director. That's the only part of this that I'm excited about. I think the Insidious movies are like a fun romp. They're the kinds of movies that you don't like watch multiple times. It's just like you go see the newest one, you're like, okay, like, you know, that was worth the 90 minutes that I spent watching it. And so I'll go see this, but again, like, you know, like a few of these other ones, it's like Fast and the Furious. It's like, yeah, I'm going to go see it. I'm not like looking forward to it, but like, I know when I sit there in the theater, like, I'm going to have a good time while I'm watching it.
You know, I'm happy. I'm all for Patrick Wilson having a steady paycheck.
Yeah.
He makes his check. He's an interesting person where good-looking guy, but not really leading man. Like,
He's in that weird spot.
and Rose Byrne's wonderful. So cash those checks. Um, Following week, this is a funny one. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Yeah.
And Scott, we've been doing this for a while, and it was like 2 or 3 episodes ago of our summer movie preview. I was like, I don't really get the Mission Impossible, and you were like, I don't know why you don't get it, because this is going to be great, and you were right. And here we are again. Tom Cruise in his 60s now,
Yeah. I think he is 60.
with the right director and the right project. With Christopher McQuarrie, he has not gone wrong.
I believe he has said that Dead Reckoning Part 2 will be his final action movie that he does in his career. I think he's leaving it all out on the table for that, and he's retiring from that genre after Dead Reckoning Part 2. So
He doesn't have anything left to prove.
I know. I think he's won. Whatever competition he thought he was in, I think he won.
He made Top Gun Maverick, a movie you and I were not excited about. He made it $1 billion franchise, and people loved it.
I know. Yeah. It won me over. I mean, I was like, I can't deny how good this movie was. This is undeniably fantastic. That was my Mission Impossible fallout.
Really good cast, and Vanessa Kirby joining us, Haley Atwell. Now, do you think Mission Impossible will not go away forever without Tom Cruise?
Yeah, I think they'll put it on ice for quite a while. I think, and I could actually see them, maybe even reboot, because there's going to be this expectation of what Mission Impossible is, which is insane stunts. Tom Cruise is at a level where he can force the insurance companies to insure him. No other actor is at that level. They don't exist. There is no other actor at the level of Tom Cruise that could ever get insured for something like this. So if the whole brand of Mission Impossible as a movie franchise is watching these people, watching and the real actor do an insane stunt, I don't think you could ever make a Mission Impossible movie again and have audiences be interested. However, Mission Impossible did begin as a television series. So I could absolutely see within the next 10 years, Mission Impossible being rebooted as a television series again, like on Amazon or Paramount Plus or something like that.
Yeah, we forget there was at least one Mission Impossible reboot to TV before. So there's name value to it, but you're right there. And weren't they sort of at one point grooming Jeremy Renner to, if not take over the franchise, to become sort of a co-lead?
No, they were absolutely grooming him to take over with, what was that? Ghost Protocol was the first one he was in. Because the idea, I believe, was that was going to end with Ethan being like, all right, I'm out. It's your game now. They tried that twice with Jeremy Renner, where they tried to give him Jason Bourne also. But I think in the making of that movie, Tom Cruise had such a good time doing it that he was like, you know what? I'm actually not done yet. Never mind. And they just, before the movie was even finished, I think they had abandoned that idea.
Yeah, because Renner in the next movie became sort of like a comedic sidekick.
But I love that for him. I wish he would come back and play that mode again, because I think he's really fun in that mode. That's sort of overwhelmed, I cannot believe you're about to do what you're about to do. That kind of vibe. You can't do that. I love that for him. I think the issue with Jeremy Renner is that he lacks self-awareness in the way that Tom Cruise does, where Tom Cruise knows exactly who he is and what his persona is. I think that Jeremy Renner has no idea what works best for him, and I find that he works best as overwhelmed and exasperated.
I love Renner,
Yeah.
but it does seem like some of his best work he almost does by accident.
Yeah. Like if they rebooted Lethal Weapon and they put a Jeremy Renner in the Murtaugh role, I think that would be like a perfect fit for him.
Oh yeah, him. And like get Michael B. Jordan as Riggs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Something like that. I think that would be so fun. But yeah, that's the vibe that he, I think, plays the best. I think that's why that the Hawkeye TV show was as good as it was, because he got to play that vibe opposite Haley Steinfeld. Yeah, I think that's what he's best at. That being said, I can't wait for this. This is the other movie this year that's like neck and neck with Across the Spider-Verse for the movie that I'm looking forward to the most. I love these movies. I think Christopher McQuarrie is such an interesting director and screenwriter. And my favorite part about a new Mission Impossible movie coming out is that McQuarrie does the rounds on podcasts and does these insane 3 to 4 hour interviews where he just goes into everything, and it is fascinating every time. And I think Christopher McQuarrie is one of our best filmmakers, and I am so excited to see what he does on the other side of the Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah, I want to see him take over something else. You and I, years ago, and nothing came from this, we were talking about McQuarrie and Tom Cruise sort of jumping on the Green Lantern franchise.
Oh yeah, right. That was nothing.
Which was just a lot of smoke about nothing, but it was a good conversation.
Sure.
But I would love to see him in, I understand sort of directing Mission Impossible movies is a full-time job, but I am excited to see him take over another franchise and work with a different actor. And, he definitely knows how to get the best out of Cruise.
Yeah.
What could he do with, I just mentioned Michael B. Jordan. What could he do with Chris Evans or...
Yeah.
I think he could have a lot of fun with getting away from Tom Cruise, who's got this wonderful thing where he just looks exasperated a lot. He's doing a lot of shrug and yeah, I know, in his movies.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's fun though.
The following week, 2 movies that are very different.
Huh?
Barbie.
Yep.
With Simu Liu and Margot Robbie. I mean, it's Margot Robbie's movie.
I was gonna say Simu Liu's not playing Barbie. I don't know why you mentioned him first.
I know. Honestly, it just popped up first, and also I really am so rooting for Liu. Because I think he has a ton of charisma, talent, and I don't want it to be all he does is Shang-Chi. So it's like, come on, let's. But no, he's not the leader. He's like 3rd or 4th. Because Ken's played by Gray Man, or Ryan Gosling, who I want this for Margot Robbie because Babylon was such a epic failure. Monetarily, artistically, it's supposed to be really good. I want her to get something in the win column because I think a lot of her movies have disappointed in the box office. Often not her fault. So you want to win. I sort of am rooting for her. I think the idea behind it and Greta Gerwig directing, I think it has a chance to be a good movie, and I hope it finds an audience.
I think it will. I think the meme potential alone is going to get people into theaters for this one. I think they're doing a very good job of hyping people up for this. I would not be surprised if Barbie ends up being number 1 this weekend, over the other major opening. And I think this would be insane if that happened, but I would not be surprised. I think this movie looks fantastic and so fun. I loved Little Women. I really enjoyed Lady Bird, but I loved Little Women, and I'm excited to see what she does with Barbie. This was a movie that was in development for years and years and years, went through multiple iterations, multiple Barbie actresses, and this is the one that finally went. And I really I'm really like surprised by what we've seen of it so far. I'm just really looking forward to this. I think it looks like a lot of fun.
Amy Schumer was the
Yeah.
set as the lead for that for a period of time.
Yeah. There was an Amy Schumer iteration. I believe there was a Anne Hathaway version. Before that, there was a version that was written by Diablo Cody. That was an iteration at one point. Diablo Cody was going to write and direct a Barbie movie. So yeah, they've been working on this for like 10 years, trying to bring a Barbie movie to theaters. So I'm excited to see what finally got the trigger pulled on this.
Same weekend, you alluded to it, Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
And it's a Christopher Nolan project. Good cast. We don't know a whole lot about. I mean, it's about J. Robert Oppenheimer, and the creation of the atomic bomb. But we don't know a lot about this film.
I mean, it's obviously an Oppenheimer biopic. I think that, if there's anything that I'm looking forward to with this one, if you've seen a movie in IMAX, you've probably seen the Oppenheimer trailer in IMAX. And it really is just like, you forget how stunning Christopher Nolan movies look on an IMAX screen. It's nuts. So I'm looking forward to it from that perspective, without a doubt. Not looking forward to how long this movie apparently is. It is Christopher Nolan's longest movie that he's ever made. Which is I think it's either at 3 hours or over 3 hours. Which is just too long. But what are you gonna do? I am looking forward to seeing this. And I am looking forward to a grounded movie that won't require a lot of exposition, of characters just speaking in exposition. I think Tenet was like the worst culprit of that I've ever seen. And all of that exposition like barely helped the movie be any less confusing. I found Tenet to be just not. I think I think it might be his worst movie. Actually, that's not true. Dark Knight Rises is his worst movie by a country mile, but it's close. It's close. So I really didn't like Tenet. I know people really like Tenet. I think it's mostly for the vibes more than anything else. Because it definitely feels like a Christopher Nolan movie. So it kind of feels like, getting a new song from your favorite band, and I think a lot of people feel that way about Christopher Nolan. But this looks like a real movie with, that has potential to like maybe make it into the Oscar talk next year. Theoretically. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. That being said, I truly plan on seeing both of these movies that weekend, maybe even the same day, like back to back. And I don't know which direction I'm going to go. Because I'm more excited about Barbie, but also Barbie feels like such a perfect palate cleanser after watching a movie about the guy who created the atomic bomb. So I just don't know.
Let's skip ahead to August 4th.
Oh, you're gonna skip over Haunted Mansion?
Oh, Haunted Mansion. I was gonna skip over that.
Yeah. I don't know. It's the director of Dear White People. He's got a very like, cool visual style. So it's got that going for it. That being said, the trailer didn't do a whole lot for me. I can't quite figure out if this takes place in the late 60s, early 70s, or if like, is it a period piece, or are people like wearing costumes? I couldn't quite figure that out from that first trailer. It looks solid. It definitely looks better than the Eddie Murphy one.
That's
That
probably why I decided to avoid it. It's like, Eddie Murphy did this.
sure.
And I tend to, I'm gotten to the point where I just avoid Jared Leto.
I mean, look, he's in it, but like, is he in it? No, he's not. He's playing one of the ghosts. And he's playing a ghost that can't look like Jared Leto because he has to look like he does in the ride, which is not anything like Jared Leto. So yeah, he's voicing a ghost. I don't know, whatever. In terms of the Jared Leto of it all, I'd rather that than, Morbius. So it's fine. I like the rest of the cast a lot. I mean, it's Rosario Dawson, Lakeith Stanfield, Owen Wilson, Danny DeVito, Tiffany Haddish, Dan Levy, Winona Ryder, Jamie Lee Curtis. That's a really good cast. There is a chance where this is very solid. I don't think that this is going to be like unbelievable or anything. I don't think this is going to be the movie that I think Guillermo del Toro would have made if they had let him make his Haunted Mansion movie. But I think that, there's a world where this is extremely solid and is a good time for theme park fans like myself. So I am looking forward to it.
That's right. You're a theme park guy.
Yes, very much so.
August 4th, Meg 2. Can't believe there's a sequel to this. And that's not a shot. It's just that really felt like a one and done.
I can't believe there's a sequel to this, and I can't believe it's directed by Ben Wheatley. That is insane. I don't know why Ben Wheatley would make this. He is such a well-respected horror director who makes all of his movies have a very specific vibe to them. And he directed a couple episodes of Doctor Who back in the day, but yeah, it's really fascinating that he's the one directing this. Not fascinating enough that I'm ever going to watch this, but fascinating all the same.
Jason Statham is such a weird career he's had because he's become sort of a go-to action guy, but was sort of like a B movie guy, but people go out to his movies more than you would expect because the Meg looked like a direct-to-video trash movie with above-average special effects, and it made money.
Yeah, mostly internationally, but yeah.
That same weekend, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. This is another property they keep going back to. I mean, it's amazing. There's always some live-action movie or animated movie or animated TV show. There was even a live-action TV show for a short period of time. Like, this property doesn't want to go away. And pretty good voice cast. John Cena, Paul Rudd, Seth Rogen, Jackie Chan, Rose Byrne. I was like, I saw an ad for this, and I'm like, they're just going to keep going with this. We're not that far removed from the second of the live action. Almost seems like a weird thing to say because it's so CGI heavy, but they keep making these movies, and I'm like, I mean, none of them are good, but sometimes they're fun. Or maybe you have a different view on this.
I mean, this is apparently my Power Rangers. I don't know. This looks phenomenal. This looks into the Spider-Verse phenomenal. To me, this is the first iteration of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that puts the emphasis on the teenage part of the equation. In almost every iteration of these characters, they've been called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but in no way do they act like teenagers. They all act like they're in their late 20s, always. And this is the first time that I'm watching a bunch of kids act like kids as the Turtles, and I am really, really excited about that. I think the animation in this is just unbelievable. This sort of like painted style that this has, like everyone is comparing this to Into the Spider-Verse in the animation style, where they're like, oh, they're just ripping off Into the Spider-Verse. But if you compare the two, the two styles really aren't anything alike. The only thing that it's doing that Into the Spider-Verse did is making a brand new animation style, and not just being focused on like, the general like Pixar DreamWorks style that has been going on. But even DreamWorks is reinventing the wheel on that stuff with the Bad Guys and the Last Wish, Puss in Boots. So I just love this new place we're at with animation, where everybody's thinking outside of the box of like what we were getting before, and really like merging these two, the CG animation style that we're used to, and also like 2D animation, and like the personality to animation that you could only bring with 2D animation, and merging those two things together and creating all of these new animation styles that I'm really, really excited about. I think this cast is phenomenal. I cannot wait to see this, and it is only the first part of a larger concept that Seth Rogen and company are putting together for this, because this movie is hitting. They're also making a mini series with the entire same cast, that is a continuation of this movie on Paramount Plus. That's like a 6 or 8 episode continuation of this. And then also they're doing one shots of a bunch of the other mutant characters, telling stories featuring those characters in like one shot animated specials. So they're really going all in on this. And I am hyped for it. This was yeah, I guess this is just my Power Rangers. I don't know. I just think this looks phenomenal, and I can't wait to see it. This is like probably number 3 on my like most anticipated of the year list.
Well, Jeff Rose directing. He did the sort of a movie that stuck up on people. He co-directed The Mitchells versus the Machines, which was really good. And it could be interesting where you're going to have a lot of people have that same affection for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it's sort of like the generation that watched that and loved it. They're making movies now. So you could have a really great chance of, I'm not saying it's going to be bad. I'm just shocked that it keeps coming back.
Sure. I mean, all of these franchises do, right? Nothing can die anymore.
That's true, but usually there's a break.
Well, the last one came out in 2016. That was 7 years ago.
I feel like there's been a TV show in between, though.
Yeah, there was a TV show. There was an animated series called like Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something. But I don't think it was particularly popular. I think it just, it existed.
There is like a very kinetic feel to the trailer. So it was like, all right. So and I do like, because I remember when the original comic came out, they would do that. They would do one shots of just Raphael fighting and a lot of different things to make the individual characters more interesting. And the fact that they're doing that with this iteration sort of shows a fandom, not just a producer is like, well, people watch the cartoon, so they'll, let's put a disinterested director behind it and see what happens.
I wanna shout out, because you probably just don't even know what this is, which is why you're skipping it. But the last voyage of the Demeter, or Demeter, I don't know how to pronounce that. I am interested in this, if only because of the concept. Do you know what this is?
It's sort of the last ill-fated cargo ship chartered to transport Count Dracula to London.
Yeah, so it's just about his the ride from Transylvania to London, and how, in the Dracula book, that boat like arrives, that ship arrives, and no one is left alive. And this is the story of that, of like what happened. I am interested in that. And David Malian, I think, is in this playing Dracula. I think he's Dracula. I'm not positive on that. But I really like him. I think he's really, really fun. He's a really great actor. So kind of interested in that. Not interested at all in the other movie, Gran Turismo. I don't know why they're making a movie based on Gran Turismo, a game that has zero plot. I just don't understand that at all. But whatever. I guess maybe car people will like it. I don't know. They tried that with Need for Speed. Yeah, they tried that with Need for Speed, and I don't really that didn't go over well. So I don't know why they're thinking Gran Turismo is gonna do anything. But also Neil Blomkamp feels like a very odd choice for that.
And if Need for Speed, that had Aaron Paul
Yeah.
smoking hot as his career was ever going to be after Breaking Bad ended, and nobody still cared.
Right. This has David Harbour hot off of that Santa Claus movie and Orlando Bloom, who hasn't been hot since Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I don't know what they're thinking here, but I guess shoot your shot, whatever. I don't know.
Last one I want to call out, and then we'll sort of go back and anything else missing. Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
I like the character Blue Beetle. I know people were worried that this one wouldn't make it to theaters because of what happened with Batgirl.
Yeah, they got ahead of it though. Like, because this movie was shooting while that decision came down, they were able to go to them, beef up their budget in production, and tell them, hey, you're shooting this for the big screen now, make it count. And that apparently worked really well. So the movie is more cinematic than apparently Batgirl was, because they weren't planning on it for it to be cinematic. So in this case, they got to him early enough that they were able to shift gears.
They got the actor who played Miguel, who plays Miguel in Cobra Kai.
Yeah, Sholo Maridueña.
And yeah, it's, I like the character. I think it's the costume's neat. I always like that costume in comics. And it's nice to have a young character. You have a young spy. Often the Marvel character with Marvel and DC, they're casting these late 20, early 30 somethings, but they're also play them older and mature. And I think they're gonna have a chance to sort of to do with Spider-Man, a character who's over his head, and I think that can be fun.
Which is funny because I think that's what they were attempting to do with casting Ezra Miller as the Flash when they did. And I think that just, that obviously backfired for multiple reasons. Not least of which is the fact that it's taken how long since his actual introduction as the character to finally get a movie made. They might have been able to do that if they would have made the movie in like 2018 when it was originally supposed to be released, but we're now 5 years removed from that. And so like, yeah, there's no, Ezra Miller is a full-blown adult. You cannot do that with them anymore. But this, yeah, absolutely. I think it's a smart move for Blue Beetle.
And I haven't been following this too much. Is this sort of outside the established or the upcoming DC universe? I know Joker is sort of outside of all that.
No, it is firmly inside. But I think that when it was starting, it was going to be sort of like vaguely interconnected, and now I think they were able to do reshoots that like fully connected it into the rest of the universe. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think it's interesting that the only characters that we know who they're playing are just Sholo playing Jaime. That's the only thing we know. Like Harvey Gillen, I don't know how you say his name. From What We Do in the Shadows, plays Guillermo on What We Do in the Shadows. He's in this. No idea who he's playing. I don't know who Susan Sarandon is playing. She's apparently the villain, but that's all we know. I'm very interested to see what the plot of this movie is. Because I think the best Blue Beetle story, Jaime stories, have been ones where he is interacting with the Ted Kord Blue Beetle as like a mentor figure. I think those are like the best versions of the Jaime story. So I would love if Ted Cord was in this. I don't know if Harvey Gillen is playing Ted Cord, but I think that would be fun. But in general, I think this has the chance to be a breakthrough success, because this is sort of we've had Black Panther, we had Shang-Chi, and now we've got Blue Beetle sort of representing Latin film goers, and they're some of the most like fervorous movie theater goers. um you know uh, uh, uh Blumhouse figured that out back in the day and started making horror films that were like targeted toward Latin audiences, and was like knocking it out of the park one after the other. So there is a chance where this is a huge success, and I think that's really cool, especially if it's good.
Scott, have we missed anything?
I don't think so. I think that's everything. I don't think we really skipped over anything. Um Cause yeah, I mean September's pretty weak sauce. My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3, The Nun 2, Equalizer 3.
I can't believe there's an Equalizer 3. I figured once they start doing that TV show, that would be.
I know. Expendables 4, that's also happening. I guess there's A Haunting in Venice, which is the new Perot movie. I'm glad that I like those movies. I think they're fun and comfy. They're like, again, they're like a really like great like kind of like Sunday evening watch, like just real very well made, just sort of like solid movies, which I think we need more of out there. And so I'm really looking forward to that coming out in September. I'm glad that Death on the Nile didn't torpedo that franchise with the all of the everything that had
A
that
lot
had
of
to do with
weird
that one.
cast controversies.
Yeah, that was not the movie's fault because they didn't have any controversies when they made the movie. Um, but once again, we have like a great cast. Tina Fey's gonna be in this one, and Michelle Yeoh, hot off of winning her Oscar. So, there's some good stuff in there. I'm looking forward to that. It's a Halloween movie, um, which is really fun. I think the book that it's based on is called Halloween Party. So I'm really looking forward to that one. I think that one could be uh maybe another like breakout success like Murder on the Orient Express was, theoretically. And then you've got Next Goal Wins, which is like the new Taika Waititi movie, um which also had a casting controversy and took another year for them to come out because they had to reshoot all of his scenes. Same guy, the cannibal, what's his face, Army Hammer. um yeah, they had to replace him with Will Arnett and reshoot all of his scenes. But that's finally coming out, which is about a soccer team, an unlikely soccer team. Michael Fassbender doing comedy. That's interesting, right?
Yeah, I would never seen that coming.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So, there's a couple of movies in September to look forward to, but yeah, otherwise, I think that's it.
How did you like Love and Thunder?
Not a fan. Not a fan. I felt like everyone except Christian Bale was asleep at the wheel. Um, There's certain things about it that I like. Obviously, Christian Bale's performance, phenomenal. I think he would have made a fantastic. That I think that character could have been fantastic in a better movie. A movie that was more focused on him. Not as like the protagonist, but like maybe not splitting time with like a whole subplot with Natalie Portman's Thor and that whole thing. I don't think they complemented each other well, those two stories. Um, Also, that villain should have been in a much darker movie. I don't think he belonged in a comedy. That didn't really make any sense. But and I really like the ending. The thing with like him and his daughter. I think I loved the revelation that Love and Thunder was like the revelation of what the title means. I think is really fun. Like really really fun and cute. But overall, I think the movie's a mess, and it's still more. I'm still gonna enjoy watching that one more than I will ever enjoy watching Thor: The Dark World, but it's not good. I think Thor has one really, really great movie, and all of the all the others are middling to bad.
I've just been so worried. I've been very curious. I'm looking forward to seeing Next Goal Wins because uh, Taika Waititi, based on the success of Ragnarok and then following that up with Jojo Rabbit, sort of got a blank check. And he's been in everything. And I just wonder, and I just have wondered if Love and Thunder was the victim of his success, where he's doing voice work in so many movies, he's producing some TV and movies, he's acting a lot, and then he has this other movie coming out so soon afterwards. It's like, okay, is that the one where they were, and Marvel's never hands off, but they were as hands off as they get, and he's pulled in so many different directions, and so he was throwing a lot of ideas against the wall, and that movie needed 2 more rewrites and better focus from a creative standpoint.
Yeah. I think Love and Thunder suffers from the same. I don't think it has anything to do with his success outside of Thor Ragnarok. I think it's entirely that Thor Ragnarok was a success and they wanted more of the same. And I think he put everything he had in Thor Ragnarok. And so you end up with the Iron Man problem, which is that, Iron Man was a screenplay that was written by the two guys who wrote Iron Man. I forget their names. But every scene, when they went to shoot it, they sort of rewrote everything on the fly, did a bunch of improv, and made the movie that we all know and love today. Then they go and they make Iron Man 2, and they're like, hey, last time we showed up to set, and we rewrote the script on the fly and did a bunch of improv, and it worked out great. Let's just do that again because that's what people like. And they make Iron Man 2, and it's a mess. And the reason is that while they did all of that on Iron Man, they still had a solid screenplay that everybody liked and everybody approved, with a story structure and a skeleton that they could use to put their improv on top of, like decoration.
It had the beats.
Right. Iron Man 2 had no script, or barely had a script. The story didn't work, but they were like, well, they felt charged by the success of Iron Man, that they're like, we'll figure it out as we go. We'll do what we did last time. But they're not doing what they did last time because they didn't have good bones this time. And then Iron Man 2 was a mess as a result. And I think the same thing happened with Thor Ragnarok versus Thor Love and Thunder. I think Thor Love and Thunder is just another Iron Man 2 problem of like, we want you to repeat the success that you had last time. Well, this is what I did last time, forgetting the fact that he also had an extremely solid script before it was greenlit and he went and made the movie. That's my guess about like at least partially what happened. I don't think it has to do with how busy he was outside of that. Maybe that's the reason why the script wasn't as solid as it should have been. But in general, I think that was the issue, was that he felt more confident than he should have going into Thor Love and Thunder, and was like, yeah, I'll just be as weird as whatever and they'll eat it up and that'll be good. That's all I did last time, forgetting that he did a lot more than that last time. But I think Next Goal Wins is a different scenario, because I don't think he's going in with the baggage of Thor, the success of Thor Ragnarok, into this movie about an underdog soccer team.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm a Taika Waititi believer, even though Love and Thunder disappointed in so many ways. At least it was an interesting disappointment. Dark World was just a drag.
Yes, 100% agreed.
Love and Thunder is a sort of bad movie that really good directors make.
Yeah, that's very true.
That's very different than the sort of bad movie that Tell Me Why So makes.
Yeah. Or even the bad movie that, somebody like the director of Thor the Dark World makes, a director whose name I can't even remember. But I know he directed Terminator Genesis after that. So,
That's just him. Because he came from Game of Thrones.
Yes, correct. Yeah, that's right. And he was replacing Patty Jenkins late in the game.
All right, Scott, this has been amazing. Like I said, we're trying to wrap up the show. This is going to be our last summer preview, but we're going to get you back at least one more time. You have a busy schedule, so we know it's not easy to get you, but I'm gonna. Before I let you go, I need you to plug your pluggables.
So check out duelinggenre.com. Check out all the podcasts on our network over there. The show that I host the most is Franchisography, which you can find anywhere you get your podcasts. Myself and my co-host Nick Jimenez, we talk about we pick a franchise and we talk through every iteration of that franchise, talk about the development of it, the behind the scenes stories, really get into the nitty gritty of like the whys and wherefores of what we got. And then sort of talk through the movie and figure out what works and what doesn't work and why. I think it's a really fun show. It's sort of my platonic ideal of a podcast that I could host. I really, really love it. So please check it out if you enjoy hearing me talk about movies here. I think you will love hearing me talk about movies there. That is Franchisography. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts.
I had so much fun talking about Rocky 3 with you guys, and which is a weirdly important movie to me. I'm Philadelphia born, suburbs of Philly, and that was a movie that played like almost on like a nonstop loop on cable when I was at an impressionable age, and Mr. T being such a pop culture phenomena during that time. And it was great talking about it, and you guys are always fantastic conversations, and it's always great talking with you, Scott. I appreciate, we've been doing this a long time, and it always means a lot that you take so much time to come on and talk movies.
Yeah, of course. Good luck and bringing this plane in for a landing, and I'm sure I'll talk to you again soon.
That wraps episode 278. Big thanks to Scott Carelli. He is one of my all-time favorite guests. He is absolute gold when he is on. Next time on the Cosmic Geppetto podcast, I'm not sure. We did a recording that didn't turn out great because of technical issues. I'm trying to pull it together. We also have some fantastic interviews set for the coming weeks. Whatever is next, I promise it'll be awesome. Till then, in the words of Jarve Harden,
see you in the funny pages.
Subscribe to the Cosmic Geppetto podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever quality podcasts can be found. Rate and review us while there. Follow us on Twitter at Cosmic Gpod, and we will follow you back. Unless you're a jerk. We don't follow jerks. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cosmic Geppetto. We love hearing your ideas for upcoming episodes. Email us at cosmicgeppetto@comcast.net.
I'm waiting to see what Nicholas Holt's final form is.